Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast Field Goals and Forecasts. I am once again joined by my co-host and great friend, Mr. James Derrick. Had a big slate of football this week, a lot of kind of one-sided games, and I think the most exciting news from this week actually came after the games were finished. We had two huge trades today, which I think we're going to dive right into if you're okay with that.
I'm glad this happened on a Tuesday. Nothing's really happening on
Yeah.
a Tuesday. Get some trade news. It's awesome.
So the first trade we got, obviously, Davante Adams to the Jets. I think we all knew that was happening. I had a hunch. I've been saying it. I knew he wanted to go back with Rodgers. It just makes sense.
We talked about it, and we listed some possible teams. And I think among those were the Jets. I don't think I was super sold on it happening. I just thought the Raiders wouldn't want to let go for any less than like a first or something like that. I thought maybe they'd hold out, but obviously no. He was dealt. He's going to go back with Rodgers. I'd be happy-ish if I'm a Jets fan. Obviously, you take the loss on Monday night, but you do know your organization is really trying to, make the team better, fill a gap that they have maybe. They go out and get Davante Adams. So if I'm a fan, I'm sitting there saying, all right, we lost another game. We're sitting at 2-4, but we are throwing all our chips.
This is the time when you come back,
Exactly.
And Rodgers hasn't thrown to Davante Adams in 2 years, which is, kind of a big deal. But I know there's still a ton of chemistry there. Obviously, they played together for so long. Speaking of the other team that beat the Jets, the Bills go out and get Amari Cooper for kind of the same price almost. They traded a third for Amari Cooper, and they got a couple picks back and forth. I think we got a sixth, they got a seventh, or something like that. And, we got him on a vet minimum, while Davante Adams, they took his whole contract.
Yeah.
And some rumors I heard were that, we were kind of the final two for Davante Adams. We offered to take, I think, half or more of his contract, and the Jets offered 100%. We can't do that. The Bills could not, put up with that. But honestly, getting Amari Cooper feels like the better move. I honestly like it a lot more than Davante Adams.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say I like it more than Davante Adams, but I'd say, we know that we paid the same price the Bills did for Amari Cooper as they did for Davante Adams, but the fact that we only have to pay, I think it's like $800,000 of his contract or something crazy like that.
Really small amount.
Is insane. That's exactly what the Bills needed. I bet ownership was shaking hands and high-fiving and hugging after getting that one done because, man, that was huge. I kind of want to just talk about this Bills-Jets game, honestly.
Yeah, all you. Go ahead.
Especially last night. I mean, I just want to highlight the need here for Amari Cooper. Last night, there were a lot of times they're down, a little more than third and short, third and medium would be 3rd, 5, and 6, where the Jets would send lots of people towards Josh Allen. They'd blitz. They'd have man coverage, one-on-one everywhere on the field, and no matter where Josh Allen threw, there's someone right on, Khalil Shakir's hip or Mac Hollins' hip. It's you do need somebody in those situations, or 3rd and goal from the 5-6 yard line, where you can just say, we can't run the ball, but we have somebody who we can just throw it up to and see if they can make a play. And I think that's Amari Cooper.
And I've been saying this for a while now. We need someone that can get separation. And nobody in the league is better at getting separation, pretty much, except Amari Cooper. One of the best route runners, one of the best separation guys. Maybe not this year, but usually one of the most secure hands in the league. And, this is a guy we need. This is who we should have at X, playing where Keon was supposed to play. And I think it's a combination of Keon and his drops, his struggles kind of early on almost, and the struggles from Curtis Samuel as well, because he seemed to be our third down goal line guy. And, there were a couple plays where you had him on that drag and, you're 3 yards from the first down. You have to punt now. It's a 4th and 3 situation. And then you have the, fade into the end zone where Josh kind of overthrew him. But, they're new. I mean, these guys don't have the chemistry that you have with, like, a veteran wide receiver,
Yeah, so I'm excited for what Amari Cooper and Josh Allen can build in terms of a relationship. I'm actually unaware of what Amari Cooper's contract status is. Do we get him for another year? Is this a rental?
I have no idea. I
Actually-
honestly could not tell you what Amari Cooper's contract looks. I just know we're not paying him a lot. We probably could extend him,
Maybe.
depending on how he plays. But he is 30. So keep that
Okay.
in mind. See how he plays first. I would imagine we have him for this season and probably next season, but I could be wrong.
That would be awesome, just to see, because it does take a little bit to build that connection
Yeah.
with your receivers. Obviously, this year it's been a whole new challenge, but adding one more guy into the mix, especially with the skill set of Amari Cooper, he's a veteran. He's going to know how to maybe zap that connection into
Yeah.
place quicker than most guys, especially young guys on the Bills. So I'm really, really excited to see what they can bring. But in terms of this game, Ray Davis for me is the big story, the big takeaway. Honest to God, I know everyone's super high on Ray Davis, but before this game, I had not really seen a flash that I really loved in particular from him. But I think maybe a little bit last game and this game, I saw it. I saw it.
100% this game.
Very confident in him, yes.
And we elevate Frank Gore Jr. like right before the game, so everyone's like, okay, maybe he'll get in the mix. He was not involved at all.
Mm-mm.
It was the Ray Davis show. I mean, even Ty Johnson wasn't really used at all.
No.
Ray Davis, especially in the pass game, and I've been saying this, I think he is such a good pass-catching running back. Even when James Cook comes back, we should use him in the pass more. And James Cook has had his struggles, and I mean struggles in the pass game. There's multiple times where it just goes right through his hands. Like he's running a streak or like a deep ball, and Josh has got it perfectly right on him, and it just goes right through his hands.
In particular, some of the easy ones.
Right, and that's where Ray Davis can really shine, I think, even when James Cook comes back. And he actually became the 7th Bill with 75-plus rushing yards and 50 receiving yards and is the first Bills player since Fred Jackson in 2011 to have 50 rushing yards and 50 receiving yards at halftime. That is a crazy stat.
Wow. You dug deep for that one.
Absolute performance for him, yeah. One of those makes you think. I mean, Fred Jackson was pretty good for the Bills. I mean, back when I was 6 years old, Fred Jackson was tearing up the field. But Ray Davis, what a showing from him. A way to step up. And I think the other thing you take from this game is the refereeing, the penalties.
Yes.
22 accepted penalties for 204 yards. A couple of bad roughing the passers, a couple of bad pass interferences. Those are the big ones. I mean, the holding calls they made were okay. I mean, the illegal formation. There were a couple of illegal shifts, maybe. You know, false starts, just anything of the sort. At what point do you kind of just say, let him play? Like, let him stop calling stuff.
This game was like a kind of an experiment. I feel like this was the first game this year where I really noticed that they called everything.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the hypothetical. Like, imagine if they called everything, and that's what it looks like. It's a very long, drawn out, penalty-driven game. There's a lot of 1st and 20. There's a lot of bad scenarios that teams are put in because of penalties. I think you can go with about half as many. Especially the roughing the passer. I mean, Aaron Rodgers even talked about it after the game. Commented on his own roughing the passer and said, quite frankly, no. I don't think
which is crazy. I've never seen a quarterback say, no, that wasn't roughing the passer on me. Just for him to come out and say that really, I think, should be a warning sign to the NFL and the referees. Be like, hey, maybe we got to take a step back, stop controlling the game as much. Mm-hmm. Just be there when there is a penalty that matters, and otherwise let him play, I think.
I agree. I cannot agree more with that.
Our defense, though, despite all the penalties, recorded a couple of sacks last night. Here's the stat I got for you. The Bills recorded a defensive sack in 25 straight road games, which is the longest in the Super Bowl era since the Cowboys, who have 28 straight. So it's second longest in the Super Bowl era. 25 straight.
Again, you're reaching deep into the
Our
bag.
defensive line is a menace on the road, but I don't know why they can't do it at home, but menace on the road right now.
maybe that's why they wanted to start 5-2. Factor in some losses. We
Yeah.
don't want to play at home all playoffs.
Right.
We
Right.
want to have that streak continue in the postseason.
I don't know.
So, yeah.
I have not seen a huge improvement when we do play at home. I honestly think we might play better on the road. And maybe that's crazy to say, but at least Josh Allen, despite his kind of okay performance from him, again, he's struggling with these receivers right now. No run game. I mean, no secure run game. You lose James Cook. That's a big blow to you. You don't know how much of the weight you're going to have to take on this offense. He now has 234 touchdowns, which is the most among NFL players in their first 7 seasons. He just surpassed Patrick Mahomes.
Wow.
There's
Are you
another
serious?
stat. Yeah, he has the most touchdowns of any player in their first
Josh
7
Allen.
years, which is a little bit of a cherry pick stat. But
Yeah.
7, he's on pace right now to have a lot of touchdowns, I guess.
He'll go down in history, whether he wins a championship or not, especially being a Buffalo Bill, as the greatest Bill, I think,
Yeah.
to do it. Because, he's very far up there on a lot of leaderboards where you just look at the names surrounding him and you go, wow, really?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you think this guy hasn't won anything. Well, you're right, he hasn't, but he's still that good.
And we can get more into that later when we talk about coaches.
Yeah.
But especially because, the kickers as well were struggling last night, as you know. 2 missed field goals on the Jets and a missed field goal and extra point for the Bills?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah,
Yes.
that's bad. And we know Tyler Bass has had his struggles. Maybe this is the end of the line for him.
Yeah, I
don't
think, honestly, I'm surprised he wasn't cut after what happened last year. I think just as a kicker, mentally, it's hard to come back from that. Maybe just a change of scenery is in order. We didn't, maybe we're just looking for the first excuse to
Yeah.
maybe move him along. So maybe miss field goal here, miss field goal there. Maybe even next week you might see us move on from him. Hopefully,
And I think if, who was it? Who was the Jets kicker?
Zerline.
Greg Zerline. I was going to say McManus. That's not right. Zerline, if he didn't miss as much as he missed, I think Bass would have been gone by now, honestly.
Yeah.
I think they can kind of blame it on the weather conditions, but Bass has just struggled. He has really struggled since last season, and it might be time for the Bills to move on from him, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing with kickers is Tyler Bass moves on. That might be the best thing for Buffalo and himself.
Yeah.
Because there are some kickers who, they move on to another team, they kind of get out of their head, and then all of a sudden they can kick like they used to. But for him right now, he's not kicking like he used to. Absolutely not.
All right, so let's move on to this next game here. I don't know how you want to go about this what was it, Monday night or Sunday night game, actually. Bengals-Giants, just terrible offensive performances from both teams. And that's not what you expect out of the Bengals. I mean,
No.
Joe Burrow is pretty much, known as this top 5 quarterback. How do you, if you're a top 5 quarterback, how can you only put up so much to the Giants?
Wow. He had one great play, that rush to the end zone, 47 yards or something like
Yes.
that. Joe Burrow did.
Longest touchdown longest touchdown run by a Cincinnati Bengals quarterback in history.
I believe that
Yeah.
for sure. 47 yards is a haul
Easily.
for
yeah.
any quarterback.
I think
of
he
any
beat it by
team.
like 20 yards too.
Yeah, I especially a Bengals quarterback. I honestly can't even put a name out there of someone who you can run
Boomer
like that.
Esiason, I think, had the record. I think like 28 or something, but
Well,
50 yards, 47. But
Burrow doesn't even scramble like that necessarily. He doesn't necessarily have the speed, but he got there. That was an exciting play. I think that was about it in terms of exciting plays from this game. The defense came away as the real winner on both sides, but as a Bills fan, I really wanted the Bengals to drop this one.
Yeah.
Falling to 1-5 would be a hard hole to climb out of, and yes, I do wish poorly for the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course I do. I'm a Bills fan.
they beat the Bills a couple of times. This is a big name games. They kind of had our number in the past couple of years.
Yes.
And just to see them kind of fall apart is reassuring almost. You only have to deal with maybe the Ravens and the Chiefs are kind of those 2 giants at the top of the AFC right now. Yeah, getting rid of the Bengals is a huge relief for the Bills at least. But the Giants, just terrible offense as well.
Yeah.
The Bengals, they had 7 points at halftime?
Yes.
So, like, Daniel Jones, just his streak of home games where he plays terribly it just continues.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't thrown a touchdown in 652 days at MetLife Stadium.
Wow.
Not a single touchdown at MetLife Stadium in almost 2 years.
That's really bad, man. That's really,
But he has
really
thrown
bad.
8 interceptions in that time. I'm just saying. And the Giants were held scoreless at halftime, and this is the first time since their season opener last year when they played the Cowboys. And the Bengals had 7 at halftime. So it's 7-0 score at halftime. This is their fewest in a game since December 1st, 2019, before Burrow was drafted.
I really don't have much to say about this game. This game was a horrible nightcap for me.
Yep.
I had a great Sunday. Watched a lot of football. It was break here at Bonas.
Yep.
I was repping all weekend, Bonas J School. But this was just a horrible way to end the night. I was excited. Maybe we'd get something a little more competitive. This had the feel of a 20-0 game almost.
Yeah.
While being 17-7 as a final.
And Daniel Jones had a good week last week. As much as I hate to admit it, he played well last week. And
He did.
just to follow it up with this nothing. I mean, his longest pass was 15 yards last night.
Whoa.
How does that happen? How does that happen? I mean, this is not your franchise quarterback. I think everyone knows that by now. They're probably going to move on from him after this season. But there's a couple other quarterbacks I think they might get the kick. They might get the boot that next season. I think one of those is Geno Smith. If you want to talk about the 49ers-Seahawks game,
let's go to that.
I think that's the biggest thing you should talk about is Mr. Geno Smith. This is actually the second time in Smith's career, Geno's career, with 50 or more attempts in a game, and his other time in his career was last week. So this is 2 straight weeks for him with 50 or more pass attempts. And he actually leads the league right now in pass yards because of that. But he's making a lot of mistakes. Obviously, 2 interceptions, 300 yards. But it's just, he's not a consistent quarterback. And I think they want to bring someone in to replace him soon.
Well, I do feel a little bad for Geno. I don't know. I love his story. I like that he kind of had this resurgence. Maybe that's kind of coming to an end at this point. But to what you said about over 50 pass attempts in back-to-back weeks, I think that really speaks on the struggle that Seattle has had running the ball. And they've kind of just turned it into, let's just make it a really short pass instead of running the ball. As you can see, Kenneth Walker had 8 receptions. That's not normal. But running the ball, K9, 14 carries, 32 yards.
What happened?
2.3 yards per carry. He did sneak in for a touchdown rushing, but that's bad. That's bad.
He is one of the most consistent running backs, honestly, I think.
Explosive, too.
When he's not hurt, he is one of the best in the league. And his ability in the pass game is also just explosive. He's an explosive runner. They just don't use him right. And they have Charbonnet, and I think that kind of, messes up the balance. But I really like Kenneth Walker. I don't know why they don't use him more, but Geno Smith throwing 50 or more passes a game is not going to work. It's just not working. It's not working.
And the Seahawks didn't have a single receiver over 65 receiving yards. Tyler Lockett had 65. Noah Fant had 63, and then you just go down the list and you see JSN, DK, both held under or around 50 receiving yards. If you're going to drop back and throw 52 times, you'd hope that one of them at least reaches the century mark. And maybe there's a problem in the pass game and the run game for the Seahawks right now, just the offense in general, sputtering.
And DK has had some fumble troubles in the past couple of games as well. He has 2 fumbles in 2 games? That's not where you want to be.
And for a wide receiver, too, where you're only actually running with the ball so often in a game, where you actually found a way to fumble twice in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. And he's fighting for those extra yards, and he's not covering up the ball while he's doing it. It's getting punched straight out. But, this is not a bad loss from the Seahawks. I mean, the Niners are a good team. They almost blew this one. They were getting close to another Kyle Shanahan blown lead. But, they figured it out. They got all their stuff together. They have a juggernaut of an offense, juggernaut of a defense, and the Niners made their way through. But the Seahawks, 0-3, following a 3-0 start. That's not where you want to be. It's not where you want to be. That's probably worst case scenario. I mean, it is worst case scenario. You
Trending
go 500.
downwards. Yeah.
Yeah. And this week they have the Falcons, so it's not a good outlook for them at all.
It does not get easier. No.
Yeah. Speaking of another bird team here, how about the Ravens? I mean, I had all faith in them to absolutely blow out the Commanders the way that they've been blowing out teams. But the Commanders were able to keep up. And I think this is a real testament to how strong this Commanders team is. And I love it. I love it. I love Jaden Daniels. I love what they're doing over there. And even though the Ravens got the win, this is a really good game for the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, I was all over the Commanders to make things interesting, maybe even upset the Ravens. They had some chances in the fourth quarter there.
Right.
They did have a bit of a comeback amounting, but weren't able to complete it. I'm not worried. That was a very encouraging game for the Commanders. In general, the quarterback play on both sides was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, Lamar, you want to talk about opposites. I mean, Lamar threw for quite literally twice less than Geno did. 52 to 26 attempts for Lamar, and he threw for more yards.
Yeah.
So that
is
Ravens
crazy,
offense
actually.
is clicking. It's a lot after the catch. Very athletic team.
Zay Flowers has looked great as well.
Yes.
Has looked really good.
That in that game, he looked amazing, Zay Flowers did. Obviously, he had that long one for 44 yards. And Derrick Henry continued to
Derrick Henry just eats every week. 24 attempts, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Another touchdown. He's just touchdown after touchdown. He's going to break CMC's streak from last year at this rate.
He might, yeah.
But what a performance by them. I really liked the way that this game went. And they kept it close throughout most of it, I would say. The big thing, I think, if the Commanders can get Brian Robinson back, they might win this game. Jaden Daniels led the team in rush with 22 yards. 22 yards was their leading rusher in this game. So if they get Brian Robinson back, that's such a good piece for them. It takes the weight off of Jaden Daniels a little bit more, and Austin Eckler's got to step up as well. I think if they get this rush game going, they might have a chance to beat this juggernaut in the AFC right now.
Exactly, and they've had some problems running the ball in the past couple of weeks, even when Brian Robinson was playing. I think it's almost the past 2-3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. That's just an estimate there. But there is a lot to figure out here. Obviously, Baltimore, great against the run, not as great against the pass. So you can see how this game definitely trended towards passing. They were behind a lot. So I'm not reading too much into this, besides the fact that without Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler will not step up and be the guy. He's past his prime. Jeremy McNichols got in there for 2 carries. Again, not much.
He's looked good in the past.
Not much you can see from 2 carries, but maybe even he surpasses Austin Eckler at this point in terms of who's going to get a bigger load there. But Brian Robinson, obviously, the main guy you want back.
Yeah, I think you said that perfectly. Honestly, just the depth at running back really hurt them here, and with Brian Robinson back, this could have been a different outcome. But Lamar stays with his 1 loss to NFC teams. Do you know which NFC team that is? So he's perfect against all NFC teams except 1. He has lost to 1 team.
Oh, if I had to give it a guess, I'd say is it a good team?
No.
It's not a good team.
Maybe fact check me on this one, but I'm pretty sure his only loss in the NFC is to the Giants and Daniel Jones.
No
That is their only loss against NFC teams. He's just been perfect against everyone but Daniel Jones.
That's insane, actually. Wow, he's 1-1 against the Giants in his career,
and he's beaten every other NFC team that he's ever played. But this one was close. And what else can you say?
Speaking of close games, the only other one that we really noticed this week was Eagles, Browns.
Just kind of two how can I say, underachieving teams. Two teams that made the playoffs last year and look like they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Even with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back, they didn't look that good.
Yeah,
They did not look that good.
AJ Brown looks like he didn't miss a step, which I think you just get that with AJ Brown. He's so good. But again, the fact that the Cleveland Browns have struggled as much as they have, and Philly wins this game 20-16,
Just
4-point game,
barely winning, and there was no offensive touchdowns. There was not a single offensive touchdown. The only touchdown from the Browns came off a blocked kick by Myles Garrett that was returned for a touchdown, and the rest were field goals. So 7.
AJ Brown
3,
had
3,
one
3.
had one touchdown there. Yeah,
Yeah, and I don't know. There's not much more you can say about the Eagles' offense right now. Saquon Barkley was unable to get going. He had 18 carries for 47 yards only. That's not him.
No.
And I know that the Browns have a pretty good defensive line, obviously, but that's not characteristic of Saquon. And I think, their offensive line is kind of lacking this year.
Mm-hmm.
They've lost a lot of guys. And what did Lane Johnson say? He said that they looked like sick or something like yeah, even he was insulting the team, and it's just not a good look for them, and especially their coach has just been a joke.
Yeah, you wonder if we'll talk about this when we get to head coaches, but just some questionable play calling. If you can't get Saquon going in the run game, maybe you try to, like the Seahawks have, get him going short passes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best player on your offense, even with, in my opinion, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, even Jalen Hurts. I think Saquon Barkley has just been one of the best players in the NFL for a while now, unanimously. You need to find a way to get him involved in space. And I know, like you said, the Browns are really great. They're very talented on defense, but still, you got to almost force the ball into his hands when he's as good as he is.
This felt like it should have been a blowout for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And especially with such a struggling Deshaun Watson, a struggling team. And here's the quote that I was looking for. Lane Johnson said the offense is constipated. So I don't know if that's the right word he was looking for, but he says they are a constipated offense, so take that as you will. And I think if we're talking about constipated offenses, the Browns are where you should look. No rush game, no pass game. Obviously, Jerome Ford gets hurt early on. James Cook looking to come back this week, maybe get some limited touches, but that would be big for them. And I think, honestly, that might be their only saving grace, unless you think when or if you start Jameis Winston at any point.
Yeah, I know any fantasy owner of any Cleveland Brown is screaming to start Jameis Winston, because he's someone who just goes out there, throws the ball down the field, and sometimes it might come with 3 touchdowns as well as 3 interceptions.
Right.
But
he's a gunslinger. That's
exactly.
how he is.
You're looking for anyone over Deshaun Watson at this point. Where I would have some confidence in starting Jameis Winston. I know the Browns coach came out and said Deshaun gives them the best chance to win. Which I disagree. What do you think?
I feel like that's something you have to say. You're paying Deshaun so much. You traded so much to go get him. It's tough to say, okay, let's start the backup. But that's what the Panthers did, and they look better. I think just giving him a shot would be your best case here. And Jameis is not bad. He's never been bad. He's the leading passing guard leader for the Bucs, right? So, we know he can throw the ball. I don't know what the holdup is. Deshaun Watson hasn't had an offensive touchdown in a couple of weeks, in a couple of drives. I mean, he just looks so flat. And now their wide receiver 1 is gone. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is their wide receiver 1 right now, and Elijah Moore, James Prochet.
All I can say, Cleveland Browns fans, is hopefully you don't let go of Myles Garrett as well, and hopefully you're not down for another 10 years of misery, because you're trending in that direction.
It looks like they're going to try a rebuild here if nothing works, but that would be worst case scenario for them. Speaking of other teams that just got blown out and might need to rebuild, Steelers-Raiders was a pretty blowout-ish game. I think that's the one you can kind of be like, okay, we all saw that coming. Texans Patriots, again, same thing. We all kind of saw that coming. We've talked about this. I think starting Drake May is one of the dumbest things the Patriots could have done, especially against such a good defense. He throws 2 interceptions. It's a little demoralizing for him, honestly.
Yeah. You could have picked another team for him to go out there and maybe just ball out. You know what I mean? You could have waited until they play just another team that's just been struggling more than the Texans. Right? The Texans are a team that really put them away early. And this game wasn't close. Same thing with Packers Cardinals. I mean, your reactions to that game?
Honestly thought the Cardinals had a good chance to go and win this game, but they struggled early and they struggled late as well. But they could not get anything going. Kyler looks terrible. Obviously, Marvin Harrison goes out. That's a huge part of your team, but just getting nothing going is not going to happen. And James Conner was good, but kind of underutilized. If you're struggling like that, you want to turn to the run game. And if you have a really reliable guy like James Conner, I don't know why you don't turn to him earlier. But speaking of running backs here, how about your guy from Syracuse on the Bucks? Just
Sean
Tucker. Absolute masterclass from him. Just, 2 touchdowns?
Yeah,
2 touchdowns?
And
tons of yards.
Just so everybody knows, I do have his Syracuse jersey. Was purchased during his final season at Syracuse.
Yeah.
And man, I just love to see him ball. He was so good at Syracuse. And just to see that kind of translate to the NFL. Maybe I'll see him in years to come. That would be amazing. Yeah. Just to see someone from Syracuse.
It honestly
it's a rarity at this point.
It didn't look like he missed a step, honestly.
No.
Like they handed him the ball and he balled out, and the Saints didn't look bad. Their defense kind of held up. Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans have been going back and forth since, obviously Lattimore was drafted. But that's always a fun game to watch. But the Saints without Derek Carr just weren't able to get it done. And as much as I like to see rookie Spencer Rattler succeed, I don't think he's the future. And he didn't look like it in this game. Speaking of future, though, these are terrible transitions. I'm sorry. Speaking of future, Bears Jaguars.
Yeah, there's
Caleb
plenty
Williams.
Of future there.
There's a huge future on the Bears. I mean, they look great. They really do look great. Absolutely blowing out the Jaguars, who were supposed to be a good team this year and have fallen very, very short.
Oh my gosh. Off the rails, the Jaguars are at this point 1-5. Trevor Lawrence is not good. Do you have any what are the bright spots from this game from the Jaguars? Do you have any takeaways whatsoever? Just looking at, I as a fantasy manager, I'm happy that Evan Ingram is
Thomas, Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram is involved.
D'Ernest Johnson is their leading rusher. I mean, what are we doing?
I don't know. Honestly, it's very. Bears got a great defense. That's not an excuse to be this bad. Caleb Williams completely outshined Caleb.
Yeah. Gabe Davis
Trevor
had
Lawrence.
2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I guess that's a bright spot, right?
But Trevor Lawrence just looked elementary. Like they just gave him this huge contract. He was drafted in 2021. So that's 3 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's not a rookie in this league. He's making rookie mistakes. He's he's throwing it under, and it's just getting undercut by defenders, getting picked off, just easy, routine stuff that you don't want to do. Trevor Lawrence is making these mistakes. And I think if you're a Jags fan, I would be worried. But are you more worried if you're a Jags fan or a Cowboys fan? Because the Cowboys got smacked by the Lions.
Yes.
Absolutely, just run through. Lions 47-9. You didn't even get a touchdown in the game. And Dak gets all this money. He's the highest paid quarterback in the league. CeeDee Lamb is one of the best receivers. How has your offense not put up any points?
I cannot answer that. I definitely don't think. I'll say this: you can't win a game in the first half.
Yeah,
but you can lose one, and that's what it felt like. After the first half, you saw the Lions just absolutely dump all over the Cowboys. And if I'm a Cowboys fan, I think I would turn off the TV. I actually was with a Cowboys fan. He didn't turn off the TV, but he certainly took his attention away from that and onto something else, because that was hopeless feeling watching that game if you're a Cowboys fan. And Goff lit it up again against a bad Cowboys defense. What are you taking away?
Goff has been so good these past 2 weeks, but I think, honestly, the use of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery against this team that we know struggles against the rush was perfect from Dan Campbell. And I think the way he used his team, he used it perfectly. 3 touchdowns from Jared Goff, 2 from David Montgomery. What more can you ask? And I mean, their leading receiver was Jameson Williams with 76 yards. So Goff is spreading the ball. He's, hitting every one of his targets. And the Cowboys were the opposite, the actual opposite. Goff has 3 touchdowns. Prescott has 2 interceptions. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have what? Hold on, let me do the math here.
2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns and 143 yards combined. The leading rusher on the Dallas Cowboys had 25 yards. Rico Dowdle, 25 yards. And that's one of the things that I've mentioned. And people are so, they don't like running backs. They think you can they're plug and play and they're replaceable. But you need one. You need a solid running game to take the pressure off Dak. You see he's struggling, but you have no other alternative. So there's nothing else you can do. You just go down early.
Yeah. I think they have something with Rico Dowdle. Can anyone explain to me why Ezekiel Elliott outcarried him? I don't think I saw Zeke do anything else except for carry the ball for 2 yards.
And then go down.
Go down. Rico Dowdle has at least been efficient. Last week he had 20 carries, and they won that game. That was a game that they were in control of against a good Steelers team, and frankly, a really good Steelers defense. Rico Dowdle touched the ball
5 times.
5 times. He had 5 receptions as well.
Okay.
So that helps him out. Sorry, he touched the ball 10 times. But is there any reason they continue to give the ball to Zeke? The wheels are falling off, man. If they're not already off, it looks bad.
If you're Jerry Jones, you have the biggest franchise in the world, and you have to put them back together. What's your first move? What are you doing next?
Well, the glaring hole is running back.
Yeah.
And yes, I would get another running back. I think it's fixable how it is, but again, you wish you had Derrick Henry. He says he couldn't afford Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean,
right, in my opinion.
You went and got Zeke. Like, there are so many better options. I mean, Aaron Jones was a free agent. Why am I blanking? Who's on the Packers right now?
Oh, Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name. Josh Jacobs was a free agent. Derrick Henry was a free agent. Devin Singletary even was a free agent. Like
didn't Zach Moss move around?
Zach Moss was a free agent. I mean,
even that dude could carry some balls.
He had options. They made one move in the offseason, one big move at least, and they signed Eric Kendricks. He's been all right, but that's not enough to save a team that lost a lot of talent. And Rico Dowdle, as good as you may think he is, he's not. He's a good backup running back.
Yeah, he'd be a great backup running back, but you can't have him be the one. It's like the same thing at receiver, right?
If you're Jerry Jones, your first move right now should be to contact the struggling Jacksonville Jaguars and say, how available is your running back, Travis Etienne?
And how is his shoulder?
Yes. And can we trade for him? Can we get a deal done just to get something back there? Because you need to have a running game when your passing game is struggling. Dak not having a good game, but has no other option but to keep slinging the rock, and he didn't do it. He couldn't do it.
So, just a question I have for you then here. Is Mike McCarthy in the hot seat with Dallas right now?
Absolutely. I think Mike McCarthy should have been fired last year.
I agree. In all honesty, I completely agree.
He has been the definition of mediocrity for the last 3 years in the league. And this season has been no different. I mean, you take a team that has really high expectations. One of the is CeeDee Lamb the highest paid receiver, or is it Justin Jefferson?
I cannot dispute that, but
He's a top
he's gotta be
3
up
paid
there.
receiver, the very top paid quarterback, and you can't get anything going. And you score 9 points on the Detroit Lions. So that to me says, okay, there's something else going on here. This isn't just Dak's fault. And obviously Mike McCarthy is in the hot seat. He's been in the hot seat for 3 years, but again, Jerry Jones doesn't want to do anything with his team. The biggest franchise in sports, he just wants to leave it alone and hope something magically fixes itself.
Yeah, I don't know. You said he's been in the hot seat for 3 years. I swear ESPN headlines were popping up as of 3 years ago saying, should they fire this guy? And it's actually, nothing's changed at all. Things seem worse. I think it's time for a change there.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other coaches in the hot seat right now. I have a good list here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the big names right now. Doug Peterson. He could get fired this week, honestly.
Yeah, he's close.
With the expectations the Jaguars were supposed to have going 1-5, having the worst record in the NFL. How do you keep this guy around? And he hasn't done anything to help his team. I think that is one of the most flat offenses in the league.
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is unfortunately a byproduct of maybe poor coaching.
2 poor coaches back to back. And if you don't bring in someone better to coach your very high paid quarterback, you're going to end up with another Daniel Jones situation.
Man, I'd take Robert Saleh.
Yeah, Robert Saleh's available. What are we doing waiting around? Bill Belichick's available.
Yeah.
I mean, these are big names that you could hire over Doug Peterson, who has proven he's not that guy. I mean, they had that comeback in the wild card a couple years ago against the Chargers. That's probably the highlight of his Jaguars career. But other than that, it's been a well of unfortunate events for the Jaguars here.
Yeah, you mentioned Bill Belichick's available. Yes, I know he is, but I'm not going to lie. I don't know about you. I've been enjoying watching him on TV.
That's true.
It's like another side is shown with Bill Belichick.
As soon as he stopped coaching, he became a really likable guy.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what.
he's just like I don't know, your dad or something.
Yeah,
you know,
your cool uncle.
Yeah, you can see something very relatable. He's really a normal person. I've been enjoying watching Bill Belichick. But what's another coach you got who's in the hot seat here?
All right. So I think this was news a couple weeks ago that if he didn't fix his team, then he might be out or at least on the hot seat. The Bengals' Zach Taylor.
Yes.
You have such a good team. To have 1 win this season, right? 1 win?
Two
wins
and 4,
this season.
Because Giants they beat. Yeah.
Okay, right. I was thinking before the Giants game. 2 wins this season with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? I don't know. That doesn't seem right to me. I think they're in the same boat as the Cowboys where a lot of big expectations. You know, they were in the playoffs last year. They won a game in the playoffs last year, right?
I'm honestly not sure, but just like a team that has slayed...
They beat us in the playoffs, didn't they? No, the Chiefs beat us.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
2 years ago, they beat us in the playoffs.
But this is a team that has slayed the Giant, right? They've beaten Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Like, there's the ceiling of expectations is extremely high. It's Super Bowl, and to say that you're 2-4 right now is a really bad reflection on the coaching.
Yeah,
with that talented of a roster, they lost Joe Mixon, and yeah, I guess he did a lot more for them than everybody thinks. But I think they do have great plug and play with Chase Brown and Zach Moss.
I do actually like that combination. It's worked out really well for them.
Yeah, and now you just wonder, do they got to let him go? Is this something where now they're kind of gearing forward towards next season, or can they finish this year and make the playoffs?
And this is 2 teams now, Cowboys and Bengals, who abandoned their running backs and said, no, I think we're going to be all right with what we got. And 2 teams that have fallen, drastically gone straight down the drain. So this just shows the importance of the running back, the running game, relying on that, because if you're a defense, right, let's say the Lions defense. At what point do the Lions say, okay, we know they're passing the ball. We don't have to worry about the run. We don't even have to send a run, we don't have to send anybody to stop the run. We can take our linebackers out, put in some DBs. If you don't have that rushing threat, defenses figure you out so easily.
Mm-hmm.
That is the easiest thing for a defense to diagnose is a team
NFL.
without a rushing game. Yes. And now you're talking about two teams that have abandoned their rushing game, the Cowboys and Bengals, and they've both done terribly. And you can kind of blame that on the GM, but coaching as well. I think both of these guys are on the hot seat. I would be very, very surprised if at least Doug Peterson and Mike McCarthy last till the end of the season. I would even give Doug Peterson another game if he doesn't turn it around. I think Mike McCarthy, same thing, but I know the Cowboys enough to know that they won't fire him. But I've got a couple more coaches here just to keep your eye on, just in case something happens.
Yeah, why don't you rattle them off here?
Nick Sirianni from the Eagles, just, again, high expectations, kind of blowing it, terrible play calling. You have the best running back in the league probably with Saquon Barkley, and you're not using him. Kyle Shanahan, he struggled with some injuries, and Ayuk didn't show up to training camp, and this happened, and, this guy. But Kyle Shanahan, with the offense, with the team you have, with that amazing just juggernaut of a defense and a stacked offense, losing to some bad teams and losing in comeback fashion where you're up multiple scores and you lose in the third, fourth quarter, and he's done that his entire career. Kyle Shanahan is known for blowing leads. Trust me, I know. He was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons when we went to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyle Shanahan, again, just blowing leads, not living up to expectations with his amazing team that they have put together. I think he's a little bit on the hot seat, but he was just in the Super Bowl, so who knows, really. Again, we've talked about this, but Bills, Sean McDermott, one of those guys who, high expectations, and every year he blows it. I mean, if you want to make it to the wild card game, maybe the divisional game, and lose because your defense can't stop anything, Sean McDermott is your guy. I mean, year after year, we see Josh Allen and the offense perform a masterclass, and the defense go and blow it. I know everybody knows 13 seconds. I know everybody has heard of, when the Texans beat us in the wild card in Josh Allen's first playoff. There's countless times where you can go back and say, wow, Sean McDermott blew this game. I mean, even last week with the Texans, it's just poor coaching, and I think everyone in Buffalo can agree Sean McDermott is at least on the hot seat.
Yeah, well, it's mostly just that think about everything we've changed in our past few years of being contenders, and the result hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that we have yet to change over these past couple years during our contending period here is the head coaching of Sean McDermott. So I really don't have an answer. Maybe we could get theatrical and say Bill Belichick comes in and saves the Bills. Wouldn't that be insane, right?
I mean, even Saleh at this point.
Maybe.
I mean, he figured us out, and he had our number for a long time. I mean, Josh Allen always struggled against him. Maybe he can coach us. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Last two I got, Brian Dable. He's got a struggling team, but I don't know
That's
if you can
given.
put the blame on him. Yeah. And Sean Payton, again, struggling team, but this time it feels different. I feel like he's not really coaching this team the way it should be coached, but that defense is scary, so I think he's got an outlet.
Yeah, well, the defense, and then also I think he is building a bit of a relationship with Bo Nix.
Yes.
I think they had that spat on the sideline,
And that's what happens.
and I think honestly I liked that. I think fans like that they speak their mind to each other, and just building a relationship might keep Sean Payton there. The fact that he has that with Bo Nix.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our fantasy segment. Fantasy starts and sits. our routine where we go and we give you sits and starts. Let's go over some records here. James, you're 4.5 for 9 on starts and 3 for 8 on sits.
I'm about
It's been
50-50.
It's been tough, but it's been such a tough year and a lot of injuries as well. I'm only 5 for 8 on starts and 4.5 for 8 on sits. Let's start with the QB. Let's do starts and sits for QBs. Who are you starting at QB this week?
I'm starting. I always, for start and sit, I want to pick somebody that you're at least considering, right?
Mm-hmm.
I try to stay away from someone who is obviously going to sit or obviously going to start. So for this week, at quarterback, I'm going to give you Justin Herbert against the Cardinals. Cardinals defense has struggled. And some at times their offense can be explosive. I know they are, matched up against a good Chargers defense, but if their offense can be explosive against the Chargers, maybe this turns into somewhat of a shootout. But
Yeah.
I just like how bad the Cardinals defense is.
I do
against
like
Justin
that
Herbert.
one. I do. If Justin Herbert scrambled a little bit more, he'd be a really good fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
I think this is an obvious one, but for my start, I'm going with Jaden Daniels. How can you count him off after that Ravens game? They're playing the Panthers. It's pretty much over for them. And without Brian Robinson, Daniels is going to get those carries again. Expect it. Expect him to explode in the passing and running game. I think this could be the best game of the fantasy season for him.
You could make a case to start every commander. And
Yeah, honestly. And how about your sits? Who are you sitting this week at QB?
At quarterback, I'm going to tell people to sit. I know he just had a great game, but sit Aaron Rodgers. He's playing Pitt. There's not much else to say about that. Maybe there's a chance he still plays well. We saw Joe Flacco kind of dice up Pittsburgh. A veteran quarterback that has played Pittsburgh many times does know the recipe to success. But overall, just a great fast defense. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has a chance to put up too many fantasy points.
And I'm taking the other quarterback in that game, actually. And this just changed. Justin Fields was benched. I don't know if you heard about that. Yeah,
Yes.
Russell Wilson going to be the starting quarterback. Don't get fooled. Do not start him against this Jets defense. I think this is going to be a bloodbath for him. I think this is going to be kind of a rude awakening to the Steelers. If you were thinking about starting either of those quarterbacks, A, make sure you take Justin Fields out of your lineup, and B, don't start his backup. Don't start Russ unless you have to. I don't think he's going to perform
What
well.
a hard spot to go into.
Yeah.
Against the Jets.
Again, just weird starting for quarterbacks mid-season, but Russ isn't going to put up numbers that you want him to. Maybe later on if he looks good, but I would stay away from him from this first game. And how about running back? Who's starting at running back this week?
I know running back has been thin for a lot of people. I don't know if you're in a 8, 10, 12, 14, however many people league. But if you're scrambling, you need to find somebody. He's not projected a lot of points, so you might be able to pawn him off your fantasy mates or maybe off waivers. He should not be on waivers, but Bucky Irving. He might just give you some explosive plays. Rachaad White is still in the mix, but there's a chance that Bucky Irving, shakes off a huge gain here or there, maybe even gets loose for a touchdown. So definitely not someone who you'd really be considering starting, but I know there are a fair amount of people with a really bad RB2 this season. So if you need to slide somebody in, you're looking for somebody, Bucky Irving. It's not a great matchup, but still, I think he's got the talent, he's got the stuff, and he might get even more involved, especially if Rachaad White's injury lingers at all.
And you think, if Baker struggles early against the Ravens' pretty good defense, I think they will look towards the run a little bit, and he's been their lead dog this year. But for me, I'm taking Tony Pollard. Again, if you need someone to start and you're looking around, he might still be on waivers. I don't know. I feel like he's claimed in most leagues.
If you're in 8-man or something, he'll be on waivers.
He'll be on someone's bench. You go and trade for him or something. I think Tony Pollard is going to play really well this week. The Bills have shown time and time again that they can't stop the rush. They can't stop the pass when a running back catches the ball on screens. Those quick dumps, flats, anything. The Bills cannot stop it when the running back is involved. I think Tony Pollard is the best running back on that team right now. And with a team with a struggling quarterback like Will Levis, I think they want to take some weight off his shoulders, especially against a pretty good pass defense that the Bills have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to look to run the ball a lot. Expect Tony Pollard to put up big numbers against a terrible rush defense.
Yeah, I really like that one. Who are you sitting? Running back
Sitting
wise?
this week, and I know this might be controversial, and I know I just talked him up a lot, but please please sit Jahmyr Gibbs. I know he was a first-round pick in a lot of leagues, maybe second round, but David Montgomery's been the lead guy near the end zone. He's been taking all those touches, all those touchdowns away from them, and the Vikings have the best defense against the Russian league right now, and that's going to be a tough game. I think David Montgomery's going to get the touchdowns at least if they do go to the rush.
Yeah, and Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously, really big fantasy producer. Even if you don't want to sit him, temper some expectations at least. This is definitely a really tough matchup. And as you said, David Montgomery has just been extremely impressive just watching him over these past few weeks. He doesn't go down. He just has a level of toughness that...
He's such a old-fashioned, good, stocky running back. And I love it. I love watching him play. But that's their guy in the red zone. As soon as he goes to the red zone, it's the David Montgomery show.
Yeah, and running backs for me this week, if you were thinking of starting Devin Singletary, don't.
I don't know why you would be, but if you need him.
Yeah, I know for a couple guys in my league, they might be considering starting him at flex. Just put that in the past. Devin Singletary is not going to be getting as much of the workload as he originally did this season. He did put up some good numbers in weeks 1 through 4 or so. But just know Tyrone Tracy is going to eat into that.
He looks great.
Really proved himself when he did get a chance to carry the ball. And I'm really not sure in what aspect they plan to use Devin Singletary if this does turn into a two-back kind of backfield, whether they want to keep him receiving the ball, getting more rushing attempts. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
However, just on a team in general that doesn't produce much fantasy output besides Malik Neighbors, stay away from the Giants, stay away from Devin Singletary. Maybe you could give Tyrone Tracy a start if you have
I
some
like
faith in
Tyrone
him.
Tracy. And if you're in a PPR league especially, I think Tyrone Tracy's really good. And, he was a wide receiver in college, so when they moved him to running back, that's your guy who should be your receiving back. I mean, maybe Devin Singletary will get the handoff load, and they'll look to Tyrone Tracy for the passing game. Speaking of passing game, who are you starting at receiver?
Receiver starting this week. You really shouldn't be starting him in any of your leagues. If you need a flex, you could maybe go towards Cortland Sutton.
You could argue that, yeah.
Sean Payton playing against a team that he used to coach. They're playing the Saints. Maybe he's got something figured out this week. I think there's just a chance maybe that the Broncos offense does click against a team that Sean Payton has coached before. Might know more about their defense. I think Cortland Sutton is just a guy you maybe can rely on, especially against a defense that has struggled in that aspect.
Sean Payton revenge game. How about that?
Yeah.
I think, this feels like an easy answer, kind of a cop-out answer, but start like you should every week. Start Chris Godwin. If you're not starting him, what are you doing? I know he might be on some people's benches. You're not sure yet, but he has looked so good this season.
Amazing.
And if you don't have Chris Godwin, start Mike Evans. I've seen enough from the Ravens defense. They cannot stop the pass, and I'm willing to bet that Baker Mayfield puts up a show on them. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, absolutely just a good fantasy output there, good outlook as well. And what about sitting this week?
I'm going to be sitting Brandon Ayuk versus Kansas City. Kansas City's been tough. Brandon Ayuk has been horrible. I don't have anything else to say on the matter. He's been screwing me in fantasy.
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk, honestly, I hope he plays well, but I'm still sitting him if I have someone better. Maybe if it was like Cortland Sutton or Brandon Ayuk, you could still give a chance to Brandon Ayuk, but just be ready to log on fantasy and see that Brandon Ayuk put up less points,
Yeah. If you have other options, don't start him. Speaking of other options, don't start Chris Olave. It doesn't even look like he's part of the game plan The Saints have other options. I mean, Rashid Shaheed, what was it? Just any other receiver they want to throw out there. Even Alvin Kamara is out touching Chris Olave. It's not part of their plan. If Patrick Surtain comes back healthy, he's getting locked down. There's no chance for Chris Olave this week. Don't start him. He had negative points this week, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why you look to start him, but don't start him.
Especially if Surtain's playing. I mean, he's just got a grocery list of receivers he's held on lock this year. It won't be pretty, especially if he's playing with the quarterback play against a defense that's so good.
Yeah, right. I didn't even talk about the fact that they don't have a QB. Yeah. But how about for tight end? I know it's been a tough position this year, but who you got for starting at tight end?
For no particular reason. He's probably starting on your team anyways. It's just hard to pick someone who's underground, you know what I mean? Yeah. I would just have faith in Kyle Pitts this week. Yeah. I don't have a reason.
I love it.
Just have faith in Kyle Pitts.
He has the most, I want to say, 40-plus yard receptions for tight ends this year. I think 2. But he still has the most receptions. So that's something. I love him. I think hopefully they get him more involved at some point. Who knows, though. I want to say George Kittle this week to start. I know that feels, again, like a cop-out answer, but George Kittle, he's been kind of touchdown dependent, but he looks to be the tight end one this year just for fantasy. And he's a top target on the Niners offense. They've been using him a lot, and they're playing the worst team against tight ends, the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think they will look to utilize him a lot more. And everybody loves Kittle. I mean, you won't feel bad about starting him at least.
No. I have one tight end that I'm sitting. You could really put anyone you want here.
Yeah.
But I went with someone a little risky, someone who's actually had some production in a couple games. But I'm going to go Tucker Kraft for no reason other than Houston has just defended tight ends. I can't. I did not fact check. Maybe they just haven't played great tight ends. Maybe it's something like that. I'm not sure. I'm going to go out on a limb and say sit Tucker Kraft against Houston. They've just had a good track record this year.
I like it. I'm also going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say sit Dalton Kincaid. As much as I love the Bills, he just hasn't lived up to his fantasy hype this year. And the Titans actually have the best defense against tight ends this year. Number 1 in the league.
Interesting.
If you would believe that. They've actually had a very good defense, surprisingly, this year. So I wouldn't start Dalton Kincaid. They don't like throwing to him for some reason. I don't think he puts up the numbers you want him to, at least. All right.
That's all I've got for fantasy.
Yeah, that's our starts and sits. Let's get into our hot takes for this week, though. I know I'm 0 for 1 on my hot takes. The Saints did not beat the Chiefs. But I want to do it again. I want to say the Chiefs and the Vikings. There will be no undefeated teams after this week. Red Hot Lions take down the Vikings, and the 49ers beat the Chiefs this time in their Super Bowl matchup. And there's no undefeated teams after this week.
I really like that.
I love it, honestly. I've just been praying on the Chiefs' downfall since like week 3, and hopefully it comes this week. But it's so hard to bet against the Chiefs. So, and you are 1-0 on your hot takes right now.
Yeah.
So.
I'm feeling the pressure of being 2-0. So my hot take this week is not extremely hot. However,
I get it.
I have an upset. They are at home, though. I have the Giants taking down the Eagles, and I think there's actually a chance that this game isn't close.
I like that, actually.
I think, obviously you've touched on the fact that Daniel Jones hasn't been good at home. Well, he's going to be now. I think this Eagles pass defense has been so horrible. The run defense, too. Everything about the Eagles defense has been terrible. I think they let the Giants play their way into this game. Maybe at halftime it's close, but I honestly think there's a chance that the Giants blow out the Eagles. However, I guess my main take is the Giants slay the Eagles, and the Eagles are 3-3.
All right, and I'm kind of surprising you with this, but I wanted to do the game of the week for next week. I have mine, so I'll talk about that.
I've got a game of the week already.
Right. You want to talk about it then?
Yeah, I
All right,
think
go
obvious game of the week for me is just a Super Bowl rematch.
Yeah.
The Niners have a lot to prove. They're 500, not somewhere you would imagine the Niners are right now at this point in the season. And they do have to prove that they can be a very high-quality team in the Chiefs. They're at home. I will say if the Chiefs win on the road against the Niners,
They look scary.
it gets even scarier.
Yeah.
It gets even scarier because
Then I'll finally count them in. I'll do it. I'll count them in, and I'll say that they're a legit team. But I don't know. I've been praying on their downfall for real.
Yeah.
But I've touched on this game already. But I think Lions Vikings is my game of the week. I think that is going to be a great divisional matchup. A team that's undefeated, surprisingly, taking on a very good Lions team that has made a fool of a lot of really good teams so far, and coming off a huge win against the Cowboys that they wanted so badly. So I think they take this one.
I like that.
All right, let's dive into our final section here, the quick picks. We're both 6 for 9 on our quick picks this year. So
Dead even.
Pretty good. We're going to be talking about the Broncos Saints first up, the Thursday night game. Kind of a stinker, but that's how it goes. Who are you taking? On this one?
I think the safe pick here. You touched on this before the show. The safe pick is the Saints. I'm not safe at all. Give me the Broncos.
Yeah.
I as I stated earlier, I think you should start Courtland Sutton. I think the Broncos might actually have some production on the offensive side. I can't speak on the run game, which hasn't been very good, but I for some reason, I'm very confident in the Broncos on Thursday night. What about you?
I would love to see Sean Payton win his revenge game. I really would, but I don't think he will. I think the Saints, like I said, are the safe pick. Spencer Rattler looked okay, but I think that offense and that defense is just kind of above average. I hate talking good about the Saints because I am a Falcons fan, but I do think the Saints will win this one. And if they do, I'm still not scared of them. But this is another kind of stinker of a game, really. 2 back-to-back pretty bad games. But the London game, Pats-Jags, I mean, Patriots-Jaguars, that's just not good.
We start our week with Thursday Night Football, Broncos-Saints.
Yep.
And then the next game we see
they want
is
you to
Pats,
wake up.
Jags.
They want you to wake up early to watch Patriots-Jaguars. And as a college student, that's just not happening.
No.
But let's say while you're sleeping, who do you think is going to win?
While I'm sleeping, I think this game could easily go towards the Patriots.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say give me the Jags. They need a win. They might already be out of playoff contention in most people's heads, but they still think they have something to prove, probably. I think before this season they said this is one of the most talented rosters they think that they've had in a while. It's proving not to be, but for, again, no particular reason other than that they've kind of owned London. They've played there a lot. Give me the Jaguars.
Yeah, I think both teams do have something to prove. I mean, Drake May looking for his first NFL win, but again, Jaguars, basically the home team. Look for them to win, I think. I'm going to take them to win. And if they don't win, Doug Peterson's out of there, I think.
Yeah,
I think he's gone. Yeah.
It's a bad loss at your second
That
home.
would be a bad loss, yeah. But I think the best 1 p.m. game, we've touched on it a lot, so we don't have to touch a lot. But Lions-Vikings, who do you want in this one? You know who I want. I want the Lions.
Yeah, we both have the Lions here. Just for me, it was just because they looked so damn good against the Cowboys. What about for you?
Yeah, they're red hot. They are red hot. And Jared Goff looks great. And I think David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, if he doesn't look good. But this is one of those games, a close divisional matchup against 2 superstars in that division. And I think the Lions do take it. And did they end up taking the division with the win?
I don't know.
They might.
I think
it'd be Who do the Lions lose to?
The Lions lost. No, I forgot who they lost to. They lost to
I think they're a 1-loss team. I think they take the division if they win this one.
Would they lose to
be big.
You know what? We're not going to.
I think they lost to the Bucs, the Buccaneers, right?
Yeah, the score to that game was 2016. I just don't remember who had 20 and who had 16.
Anyway, next up, 4 p.m. game. We've touched on it a lot again. Like I said, 49ers, Chiefs. Who do you want in this one?
I just want the Niners. I'm sick of talking about the Chiefs, guys.
I agree. You know I agree. Those two games are my hot take, but you know who I want. Lions, Niners, lock it in. Let's roll. And for Sunday night, another great game. If either of our games aren't the game of the week, this would be the one. Bucks, Ravens, two high-powered offenses with kind of lackluster defenses. Expect a high-scoring game if nothing else, but who do you have here?
Yeah, this game's weird because like last year, if you look at this game, you'd almost think this would be just like one of those slow-paced deadlock games where Ravens defense last year was great, Bucks defense last year was pretty decent. I've got the Bucks in an upset here.
Wow.
Again, I just want to play risky. I love taking the Bucks when they're an underdog. It hasn't really worked out for me that great, but I think they can surprise a lot of teams. Chris Godwin has been unbelievable. Mike Evans has been great in the red zone, and the emergence of Bucky Irving, all those things considered, I think they can get it done against the Ravens. The Ravens could easily blow this game out of the water. Do you have the Ravens here?
I have the Ravens. They've just looked so good. They've just been probably the best team in the AFC. Is that crazy to say?
No.
I think they've been the juggernaut in the AFC right now. Derrick Henry just running all over any team he plays. Lamar Jackson not afraid to throw it. Zay Flowers looking great. They're red hot as well. So I think they carry that momentum into Sunday night, and they take on the Bucks, and they beat the Bucks, who have been pretty inconsistent this season, I think. So, like I said, you were talking about this. You said like last year this would have been a defensive matchup, but this year it's all offense. So I think whoever outscores the other, and that's how it's going to work.
And you say Ravens best in the AFC. That's pretty legitimate considering how hot they've been recently. And when you consider, I guess, the only other team that's in contention there is maybe the Chiefs or the Bills. They beat the crap out of the Bills, and the Chiefs they lost to by about this much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have another bad loss in there, but now it's like they're over that. Their offense looks so good.
I think if the Ravens played the Chiefs right now, they'd blow them out. And I don't think that's crazy to say.
I don't
no
think it is
Rashee Rice, they'd be gone. But for our final game of the week, Monday Night Football, Chargers, Cardinals. You know, these primetime games do not get much better. I think Thursday and London and Monday are kind of boring games, but there'll be a decent 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock slate on Monday, or on Sunday at least. But for Monday, Chargers, Cardinals, I'm taking the Cardinals. Who you got here?
I've got the Chargers. I said you should start Justin Herbert. If I could have also said a wide receiver from the Chargers to start, I would have said Ladd McConkey. He's kind of came into his own a little bit. I remember at the beginning of this year, I would see who the hell is named Ladd McConkey. I just thought it was funny, like a creative player. He's been good actually. He's been pretty good. If you don't know who he is, he's Justin Herbert's favorite target. So
from Georgia.
Yeah. So start Justin Herbert, maybe even start Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
Chargers are going to beat the crap out of the Cardinals this week, in my opinion.
I think the Cardinals, maybe I have too high of expectations for the Cardinals. I'm not sure when Marvin Harrison's supposed to come back, but if he does come back, I think that Cardinals are a lock. If not, I think they're scrappy enough to get it done. They beat Jim Harbaugh and his Chargers. And that will do it for us. Thank you for tuning in again for another episode of Field Goals and Forecast. This is Ryan Adio, joined by my friend James Derrick. Thank you all for listening again. Have a good night.
Peace.